And I'd like to welcome to the Word of Mouth Wednesday today, Mr. Selwyn Firth.
Thank you for your kind words, and I do appreciate your ability to let me be here.
Oh, yeah, well, thanks for joining us here today. And I guess I want to ask you about the topic that's on a lot of people's minds, and because it's just recently happened, and it was a major event here in Toronto. What was your experience at the G20?
Well, my experience was I decided to check out what was happening because of I am a mayoral candidate, and I thought I should have a first-hand look at what was happening with regarding the police and the protesters. So I took the subway. I traveled by subway quite a bit. I took the subway down to Yonge and Bloor, and then I started walking down Yonge Street to King Street, and I started counting the broken windows to get an accurate number. And my estimate was that there was about 30 on the east side of Yonge Street, and you double that for the west side, and you can say there's maybe 60. And that's about $100,000 in damage. But there was also collateral damage inside the stores, which I couldn't account for. But I got to the protest area at King and Bay, and the police were lined up in the riot gear, but they were very pleasant, easy to talk to, saying that the protesters had dissipated and they were up the street. So I walked up the street, I saw them, and there was really hardly anything going on. And then I went over to a local pub in the vicinity called the Imperial, where I played trivia, and I checked out what was happening there, and I saw this mass situation at Queen's Park. So I thought I should go over to look at it. And having been a graduate of the University of Toronto, I knew the ins and outs of the area, and I decided to go by the Med-Sci building to see if I could get an elevated look at the protesters. And I was told to stop progressing, which I did. I was about 60, 70 feet away from the police, and I said, I'm just here to ask questions. I want to find out what's happening. And police came over. I thought they were actually coming over to talk to me, but the first officer bumped into me 3 times, pushed me back, and then the other 2 grabbed me and said, you're under arrest. And I said, for what? And they wouldn't tell me. They just said, you're under arrest. They took me into custody, and then they put me through the whole fingerprinting, photographing, everything. Took off all my strings, my laces from my shoes. They cut the lace in my hood on my jacket. They took my belt, and then they took me into custody. And then, I was interred at the Eastern Avenue cattle corral. And it was really quite disturbing to see what happened and the kind of people that were there. Most of them claimed to be innocent. They weren't doing anything. They weren't fighting. They weren't throwing. They weren't doing anything. They were just sitting there protesting. And they were, charged and grabbed by the police. So it was a pretty devastating kind of situation. Then things only got worse for me because I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm insulin dependent. I need insulin every few hours. I advised this to the arresting officers. They took me to see the doctor they had on staff, and he didn't even know where he could get insulin. And I finally had to tell him there's a 24-hour Shoppers Drug Mart in a neighborhood that wasn't too far away. He tried to get the kind of insulin I needed. He couldn't. He got one type, which I was able to use, but it was not the long-acting type, so I had to be careful as to what I ate and how low my blood sugar got. So I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat because I had lack of insulin. And the other situation in the morning, next morning, going up to the Finch Avenue courthouse, I again asked about the insulin. They said, oh, it'll be there. Don't worry about it. I get to the Finch Avenue courthouse and ask about the insulin, and they say, oh, no, we don't have any of that stuff here. And I said, well, that's the guys down at Eastern Avenue told me this, and the other police officer referred to him as an a-hole. And I kind of agreed with that because the way the situation was, they had no preparation for anybody with any kind of medical condition that might be inadvertently caught up in this thing. I wasn't intending to protest. I was there as an observer, and I really observed a lot about the operation of the Toronto Police Force, and believe me, it's not pretty, and it's not something that I would like to see in this city continue the way it did. I finally, after about 16 hours of being in custody, I was able to get another shot of insulin. I was hustled back to the courthouse, hustled up to the bail hearing so that they could grant me bail and get me out of their sight and out of mind. And that was it. I finally got home around 8 o'clock Sunday night, which was 26 hours after I had initially left the house to go and observe what was happening.
Serious situation here. We're speaking with Selwyn Firth, but we've just got to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back here on the Word of Mouth Wednesday with more info on what's.
This is Kevin Annett with the friends and relatives of the disappeared, and I want you to listen to Word of Mouth Wednesday. And please listen to our website, hiddenfromhistory.org.
Word of Mouth Wednesday. We're back here on the show, and we're talking with Selwyn Firth, who's a candidate for mayor, who was just describing a bit about his experience at the G20. And I just wanted to back up your story here before you started talking about the horrible conditions of this what's come to be known as Guantanamo Bay, this facility on Eastern Avenue. I was just wondering about again. Could you just describe the incident that they where you were apprehended? Like you said you were in Queen's Park, but
no, I wasn't at Queen's Park.
Park.
I tried to look at Queen's Park from the University of Toronto campus. I was on the near the Med Science building, near the McLeod Auditorium, J.R.R. McLeod Auditorium, where they have science shows and various other things. Right. I was 70 feet from where the police were. The police were guarding a set of steps that lead down to Queen's Park, and it's an elevated area. It's a plaza. It's got pebble stone surface and everything, and I was at least 70 feet from the police, and they told me to stop, so I stopped. And then they told me to leave. I said, no, I'm here I want to observe. I want to know what's going on, what's happening. And I insisted that I be told. I told them I identified myself as a mayoral candidate, at least expecting to get a little bit of respect about, checking out what's happening. Nothing. They came, arrested me, and threw me to the ground. I ended up with lacerations on my face, my knees, and my hand. And this was for doing nothing except exerting my right to be able to be somewhere.
And I know that there's a lot of I know that this similar things, I guess, happened to. They're saying over 1,000 people had been detained or arrested or kettled during this G20 weekend. Were you charged? I know a lot of the people had been released without any charges. Were you charged with anything?
I was charged with obstructing police, and that's the only charge that I have. And I'm released on $1,000 bail. And I have to appear in court on, August 23rd to set a trial date. And that's the situation as it is right now. I had bail conditions where I wasn't allowed to go downtown until July the 5th, which is, Monday. And so everything is okay at this point in time.
Right, yeah, and we're glad you're able to make it here today to CKLN for this interview here on 88.1 FM.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Bruce from the crew calling from the Bay Area. Check this out. Going on right here, CKLN 88.1.
When, and I don't like to, I'm not saying that the G20 is like anything that happened in World War II with the dire consequences for the Jewish populations of Europe. But at the trials in Nuremberg, the issue was I was only following orders, and that wasn't a valid excuse. It's not a valid excuse for any police officer to say I was just following orders. They have the knowledge and the responsibility to protect people, not to trash their civil rights. And if they didn't do that, then they're at fault, and that's something that has to be corrected.
For real. And the looking into the G20 will continue with all these all these more stories we're hearing, all the words that are coming out, reports that are coming out daily, more stuff. We're finding out that it took place within that a few day span a couple weeks ago with the major G20 event, and then also here on the Word of Mouth Wednesday, we're going to start getting into talking a lot more about the race for mayor, because this is a big countdown, I guess, till October 25th. 2010. For more info, you can check out selwynformayor.com. That's SELWYN for mayor.com.